Okay, I have my cheat sheet, so I'm going to try to behave. Okay, I'm calling this meeting of the Tucson AMA Groundwater Users Advisory Council to order at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday, I guess it's the 10th. And I am the chair. My name is Val Little, I think. And would the members present please introduce themselves?
Pat Jacobs, Central Arizona Project. Glad to be here.
I'm Tom Muir, Director of Tucson Water. Also glad to be here.
Doug Greenland, General Manager, Cortera Moran Irrigation District, and I'm glad to be here too.
Well, I'm just glad that you're all here. Okay, ADWR staff, and what I'm going to ask of both Kyle and Kennedy, because they're newbies and because Doug's a newbie, and we haven't seen each other for a year, it seems, would they introduce themselves and give a little bit of their background, whether it's their whole life or their career at DWR? I think it would be helpful to us.
Thank you, Chair Little. My name is Kyle Miller. I'm the new AMA Director at DWR, one of the two new AMA Directors.
Can we look?
It's great to be here with you. I'm sorry?
Can we look at you?
My camera's on.
Where are you? Can everybody see but me?
Yeah, Kennedy can see me on hers.
Oh, now I see. Okay.
All
okay,
right.
I'm good.
Great to be here with all of you. I've been with the Department of Water Resources for about 2.5 years. Prior to being the AMA Director, I was the Planning and Data Manager. Before that, I was the Project Coordinator on the management plans, and before that, I was the Municipal Planner. So I've had several different roles at the department here already. Prior to coming up to Phoenix to work at DWR, I was in Tucson for about 10 years, working at the U of A and then Pima County. Tucson, I still consider home, so it's kind of especially exciting to be here with you guys.
Good to know.
Okay. Sorry, Val, let me see if I can start my video. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Kennedy Shepard. I'm the Groundwater User Advisory Council Coordinator. I've been with the department for a little bit over a year now. Before this job, I worked for an education nonprofit group that was actually based out of Tucson called E3. I worked there for a while, and I have a bachelor's degree in sustainability from Arizona State University, and I'm currently getting my MBA through Grand Canyon University. So, yeah, great to be here.
Excellent. Well, that's good. I'm glad I asked because now we know your secret Tucson aficionados. So that helps. That helps us a lot. Kennedy, do you want to talk about agenda item number 2, webinar logistics?
I would love to.
Okay.
So just some webinar logistics before we get started. We do have a pretty big agenda, so to help us reduce audio feedback, we do ask members of the public to please keep themselves muted throughout the entire meeting. If you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat box. The chat should be in your bottom right-hand corner if you're using the WebEx app. If you're on the browser, it should still be in the bottom, either to the right or to the left. I'm not 100% sure. But that's where you can find the chat, so put any questions or comments in there, and we will get to those during the call to public. Call to public is also a time for members of the public to unmute themselves if they do wish to address the council at any time. Please remember that this meeting is being recorded, so anything that is put in the chat box will be made known to the public, and a recording of this meeting will be made available probably next week sometime. And also, if you're having any technical difficulties, the number to our help desk is on your screen. And I think that is it. Thank you, Val.
Thank you, Kennedy. Next item is item number 3, the GRAC Vice Chair. There is a very conspicuous absence on our council. And I'm heavy of heart. Dan Offred, as you know, has passed away since our last meeting. I don't know how many of you knew that he was not well. And for me, it's both a professional loss and a personal loss. He always had my back. He was always supportive of my work and our work on GUAC and the Safe Fuel Task Force. And as a personal aside, Dan and I shared a love of rare and exotic cactus and succulents, and we traded plant starts quite a bit, and I always came out ahead. I always came out ahead. He was very generous, and I miss him both personally and professionally. And every time I go out my back door and see the plants that he provided me, I think about him saying, "Never better, never better." That's what you could always count on him. So he's missed, and I know that we'll have a new member eventually, but it's a loss. Anybody else want to share anything about Dan, both either on the council or in the public?
If you'd indulge me, I'd just like to echo those thoughts about Dan being a really quality individual. And I worked with him part of my time in Tucson. I was a consultant for about 8 years and did some work for the district. And Dan was always very thoughtful, very oriented on making sure that we got to good outcomes and were addressing the biggest issues that the district was facing or the region was facing. So always a positive experience anytime I had the pleasure of working with Dan, and definitely will be missed from my perspective.
Madam Chair, this is Rosanna, if I may.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you. I just want to say that I first met Dan when he was working for Pima Community College, actually at the East Campus, and he was very instrumental in helping my son Andres succeed at the community college, as well as achieving a scholarship to the University of Arizona. So Dan and I, we had a really good friendship, and yes, my heart is broken as well upon his death. And thank you very much, Val, for giving us an opportunity to share some thoughts.
Of course.
Val,
Yes, sir.
I first knew him when I was on the fire district board, and he was at Metro, and we would communicate just across because we were both the same area. And when I got to the water side of the world, he was most helpful and always a kind and gentle soul.
Yes, indeed.
Val, this is Wally, if I may.
Sure, please.
Dan, over the past 20 years, has been instrumental in many of the successes of the district, and he will be greatly missed by the entire family here at Metro Water. And his family graciously allowed Joe to place his 20-year pin with him when he was buried.
Oh, that's great. I had not heard that. That's great, Wally. That's great.
Yeah, Val, I didn't know him for as long as the rest of you, but I will say from the moment I walk into the Metro office there, he made me feel welcome. He answered every question I had and went overboard at making me feel, welcome and important. And he'll be missed greatly. So,
Indeed. Okay. Tentatively, there was going to be discussion about the GUAC vice chair, and my feeling is that we can take that up at the next meeting. Maybe by the next meeting we will have a new member. I'm not sure exactly where the process is, whether folks have applied for the vacancy, but it just seems like I'm comfortable, if you guys are comfortable, waiting until our next meeting to discuss and vote on a vice chair.
Agreed.
whatever makes you happy, Madam Chair.
That's
I like this. Oh yeah, this is just go right along with whatever I want to do.
I can't go that far, Val, but I can agree with you.
Good for you, Pat. Hold the line. Hold the line. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to move on to item number 4 and ask Kyle to update us on current ADWR activities.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. Before I begin, I just want to offer my condolences to the family and friends of Vice Chair Dan Offret. I didn't personally have the opportunity to work with him, but I can tell based on some of your tributes that it's going to be an absence that will be felt in this group and many others, personally and professionally. So I'd like to start by discussing some staffing changes that we recently had in the AMA section. And on your screen now, you should see an updated org chart that Kennedy was instrumental in putting together. We've been receiving some questions about who to contact for which programs, so I'm hopeful this can provide some clarity for you. It'll be posted on our website along with the location of the contact information for each person that's listed here. So as you know, Anof Henningsen has left the Department of Water Resources to return to Israel. It was really a pleasure to work with her and have the opportunity to learn from her the time that we had together. And we're really sad to see her leave, but also happy that she has this opportunity to go home to be with her family. So I'll be taking on Anof's responsibilities as one of 2 new AMA directors, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind here, but I'm confident I'll settle in shortly. Natalie Mast has also been promoted to AMA director, and she's going to continue to focus on management plans as she gears up to write the 5th management plans over the next year or so. And we're hoping to have as smooth of a transition as possible, so please do reach out to me with any questions or concerns you may have. We also have 1 new AMA manager and 1 new supervisor. James Dekoff was promoted to the AMA data and planning manager position, and he has been with the department for over 7 years, in that time really developing skills in data management, data analysis that we think are really going to improve our section and improve our planning capabilities moving forward. Really excited to have him in that role. Lori Kaysen was a program manager in the AMA section. She retired from the department after 30 years of state service, and in her place, Caitlin Parker was named AMA program supervisor. Caitlin's been with the department for about 2.5 years, serving most recently as the municipal planner, and she's been instrumental in training new staff and improving the efficiency with which we work on our program, so we're excited for that. I'm also happy to announce that we once again have an agricultural planner, and Tyler Fitzgerald is in that role. He's been with us for a little over a year, previously focused on the annual reporting process and completing conveyances. And one thing about Tyler is he's relentless in his efforts to learn more, so I couldn't think of a better person to be in that position. We've also been fortunate enough to create 2 new data specialist positions, bringing our grand total to 3. Brad Niska joined the department in late September and is focusing his efforts on the industrial program. And Brad has experience in business and conservation, and we think he's going to be really invaluable as we move into a new reporting season here in just a couple months. Madison Moreno will be working with Tyler in the agricultural program. She joined the department as an intern in 2019 and has now accepted a full-time position beginning when she completes her degree in December. We're always excited to see interns stick around with us, so especially excited for that one. I mentioned that there are 3 data specialists. Brad and Madison joined Colette Pancini, who's focusing primarily on the municipal sector. She joined us in early March, just before COVID changed our business operations. And she's already proven to be one of our most productive team members and has been really key to getting our data sharing efforts off the ground. Any of the data dashboards that you see on our website, she's been responsible for, had an instrumental role in those. So these additional staff members are going to allow our section to expand our planning activities while better supporting the development of the 5th management plans. We think it's a great situation for us moving forward. On the administrative side of the AMAs, we've hired Andrea Chang to work on completing conveyances, and Nick Rendendo has taken over coordinating the annual reporting process. So I know it's a lot of changes, but we have great staff members, and we're really happy to be able to promote from within the department when we're able to, and to even be able to grow our section despite some of the current economic difficulties. So I can pause here for any questions before I change gears a little bit.
Any questions from the members of the committee? Council? I have just one. Kyle, who are you and Natalie reporting to at this point?
We report up through Carol Ward.
Carol, okay. Okay, I sort of assumed that, but I wasn't really sure.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
All right.
No questions? You want to move on with other activities?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So the Governor's Water Augmentation, Innovation, and Conservation Council continues to meet virtually. And I just want to reiterate, in case anyone in the audience hasn't heard this before, the council is charged with a number of items. Most significantly is identifying and recommending opportunities for water augmentation, innovation, and conservation for the state of Arizona. And the council is also tasked with providing guidance to Director Brashatsky upon his request. The council has participated in 2 meetings since the last UAC meeting, one with Arizona's tribal community to discuss water rights and settlements at a special meeting of the council, which was held on September 10th. And the council also held its regularly scheduled meeting on September 15th, in which Director Brashatsky discussed the Arizona reconsultation process. And in addition to those council meetings, there are regular committee meetings. The G-Wake committee meetings are where much of the council's work is accomplished, and those meetings are open to the public. They include council and non-council members, and there's no formal membership, so I want to encourage anyone who's interested in contributing to please attend and participate. All of the committee and council meetings are recorded and posted on the website, so if you're interested in any of the meetings and aren't able to attend, you can listen to them afterwards, or if you're just getting started out and want to get caught up, they are available for you to do so. The next council meeting we have is scheduled for December 1st at 10 a.m. and the next committee meeting will be the Desalination Committee, which will meet on January 12th at 10 a.m. We do have a possibility of having another committee meeting sometime in December. We're trying to nail down a date on that. It will be the Groundwater outside the AMA's committee. Once we get a date for that, if we're able to, we will send out a notice to GOAC interested parties. The department has also participated in 2 Arizona Reconsultation Committee meetings, and we're calling those ARC meetings. And the ARC reconvenes many of the same leaders that worked on the steering committee of the Colorado River DCP in Arizona. And the ARC has created a modeling and analysis work group, which met this morning at 10 a.m., as well as an Arizona strategy team. Moving forward, the ARC is going to begin preparing the state's vision of what Colorado River management should look like once the current set of rules expire in 2026. Its members represent Arizona's diverse water interests, including elected leaders, tribes, municipalities, agriculture, industry, and environmental groups. And that committee is undergoing a collaborative and transparent process and has implemented virtual participation in response to COVID-19. And I will just end by announcing or by letting you know that we're working diligently to finish compiling the 2019 statewide water use estimates, and we'll be glad to share that with you at our next meeting.
Great.
Does the council have any questions?
Any questions of Kyle? Thank you, Kyle, very much. And I look forward to that report at our next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Moving on to item number 5, agenda item number 5, Arizona Water Bank Authority Preliminary 2021 Plan of Operation. And we've got Virginia to help us.
Okay, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the council. My name is Virginia O'Connell. I'm the director of the Arizona Water Banking Authority. With me in attendance is Simone Jolsrud, the technical administrator. I miss actually coming down to Tucson, getting out of the office and meeting with everybody in person, but unfortunately we can't do that. I too want to send my condolences to Dan Offred's family and friends. I didn't know him very well, but in the interactions that I did have with him, he was always very kind. So sorry to hear that. So on the preliminary plan, next slide, please. Before I jump into the plan, I'd like to give a brief update on where we are under this year's plan, the 2020 plan. So as you know, this was the first year that the Lower Basin Drought Contingency Plan was implemented with regard to Colorado River operations. Based on Reclamation's August 2019 study, it was determined that the river would be operated under a Tier 0 condition. Under that condition, the state of Arizona is required to contribute 192,000 acre-feet of water to Lake Mead. Because most of that water comes from other excess CAP water that the bank uses, there was no water available for storage by the bank this year. However, halfway through the year, CAWCD indicated that they did have some unexpected water supplies available. It was roughly 68,000 acre-feet. And so that water went to the statutory firming pool that is shared by the Water Bank, Reclamation, and the CAGRD for their replenishment reserve obligations. So of the 68,000, the bank ended up with roughly 50,000 acre-feet, and we scheduled that for storage in all 3 AMAs. that unexpected water supply was water that was in Lake Pleasant, and it was made up of 2019 turnback water, plus it was made up of water that was coming in from Agua due to the heavy spring precipitation that we had. So CAP needed to move water out of Lake Pleasant in order to move water in from Lake Mead. Since that time, additional turnback water was made available from CAP M&I subcontractors. So the bank received an additional 10,000 acre feet. And we're storing that again in all 3 AMAs. By the end of the year, it looks like we'll have stored over 36,000 acre feet in the Phoenix AMA, 12,000 acre feet in the Canal AMA, and just under 12,000 acre feet in the Tucson AMA. We started the year knowing that we would be meeting our goals through the purchase of long-term storage credits. We've done that pretty much almost everything that we've had in the plan. So that's over 27,000 acre feet of long-term storage credit purchases. Those were primarily in the Phoenix and Tucson AMAs. We also developed intentionally created surplus firming credits. That was 6,390 acre feet. And so briefly, what the firming credits are is under Arizona's implementation plan for DCP, we have the mitigation component and the offset component. So as part of the offset component, the Gila River Indian community is creating 150,000 acre feet of ICS in Lake Mead. And there are 2 agreements, a federal agreement and one with the bank. So under the federal agreement, they've agreed to purchase 100,000 acre feet of ICS that was created, and the bank agreed to purchase 50,000 acre feet of the ICS that is created by the community. Due to a one-time 10% reduction for evaporation, the 50,000 acre feet of credits become 45,000 acre feet of ICS credits. So it's creation of ICS and it becomes ICS credits. So the bank, even though we're going to acquire 45,000 acre feet, we're purchasing them over several years. So not all up front. In 2019, we purchased the first amount that was just over 13,000. This year, over 6,000. So we have a total of over 19,500 acre feet of ICS firming credits purchased. These credits can be used to firm the Gila River Indian community after 2026. Until then, that water needs to stay in Lake Mead as part of the offset program. So that's, before I move on, if anybody has any questions for this year.
Any questions for Virginia at this point? Okay, very clear. We're moving on, Virginia.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so like 2020, 2021, we will again be in a tier 0 condition. And so again, excess supplies will be used to meet Arizona's obligation of the 192,000 acre feet. So at this point in time, there is no excess water available to the water bank for storage. So to continue to meet our goals, we will again be purchasing long-term storage credits and again, purchasing some of the remaining ICS firming credits from the community. Also, there's no interstate storage planned for 2021. Next slide, please. I am including this table that identifies the water delivery and facility rates. Even though we don't have any water up front, these amounts identified are the same that we use to determine how much the cost is for purchasing a long-term storage credit. Also, while we don't have any water, the CAWCD board created the statutory firming pool that in the event water becomes available like it did this year, that they could put that water in the pool and make it available to the agencies that use that water. So the only difference here from this year is that the water delivery rate went up by $2 an acre foot from $2.11 to $2.13. Also on the Tucson water facilities, there's a 3% increase in that cost each year. So next slide, please. So this table identifies the funding available for the 2021 plan. So under the withdrawal fees, you'll notice there are no dollars available in the Pinal AMA. That's because the monies collected in that AMA are being used for the groundwater infrastructure and irrigation efficiency projects that are part of DCP also. Those monies will not be available to the bank until after 2026. Also, you'll notice the amounts available are lower, and that's because they include the legislative transfer for making monies available to ADWR, the 1.2 million. So in the Phoenix AMA, the money that is available will be used to purchase additional ICS firming credits. Next year's rate for those credits is $254.40. That also goes, that rate also goes up 3% each year, non-compounded. In the Tucson AMA, we're looking to use the funds to purchase long-term storage credits. And then for the water storage tax that's held by CAP, they did reserve monies for the bank in order to purchase long-term storage credits. And so that amount is $4 million in the Phoenix AMA and $6 million in the Tucson AMA. In Maricopa, CAP, there are additional funds coming in, but the $6 million for Tucson is pretty much all the funds that are available. Now, if we do have water coming available, water takes priority over credit purchases. So some of that money could switch from developing credits to storing water. So next year's plan, the cost is just over 10.8 million, and we're looking to approve over 45,000 acre feet of credits. Next slide, please. So what does the plan do towards our goals and obligations? For M&I firming, you'll see that we will have exceeded the firming goal. And that was the firming goal was established shortly after the bank was created. So a lot's happened since then. Is that the amount? We probably will need more. In the Pinal AMA, we're at 97%. In the Tucson AMA, we're still behind, but we've made some improvements. We're at 62%. And if we include the withdrawal fee credits for Tucson, the 107,000 that you see listed there, we would be at 73% of having met our goal. So in the Phoenix and the Pinal AMA, so with withdrawal fee credits, they're for water management, and that includes firming, Indian firming, and CAP M&I firming. In Phoenix and Pinal, those credits would likely be used to meet our Indian settlement obligations. Again, in Tucson, they would likely be used to meet our M&I firming obligations. For On River, we haven't had any general fund appropriation, so that amount has been at 96%. And then our obligation under the settlement for the Gila River Indian community, we're at 49%. And that 49% reflects credits that have specifically been dedicated to the BRIC. And they include long-term storage credits that have been accrued on reservation, roughly 105,000. It includes 44,000 acre feet of firming credits. These were credits accrued by offsetting the full water delivery costs to water delivered on reservation. And it includes roughly 22,000 acre feet of ICS firming credits. So the Indian Firming Study Commission identified that, based on modeling, that they were estimating 350,000 acre feet of credits. That was the goal. It could be, a lot more. So we'll be looking at that, but We have credits dedicated, but again, we also have additional withdrawal fee credits that can be used for firming. We're also required to firm other settlements. The White Mountain Apache tribe settlement is one of them. That's not enforceable yet, but and there could be other future settlements. And the Indian Firming Study Commission also estimated that it could take roughly 200,000 acre-feet of credits to firm those obligations. So as you can see, those withdrawal fee credits will be utilized for that purpose. So that's pretty much what I have. I'll take any questions at this point.
Questions for Virginia?
Virginia, you mentioned that the progress is towards those goals through 2021. Were they all to be completed in 2021, or was the goal put out there for many years in the future?
The goals were established back in the day. We were required to set aside a reasonable amount of credits for on-river firming using the general fund appropriations. And so we did modeling to determine what that amount might be. And they, based on that modeling at that time, it indicated 420,000. So the same thing was done for M&I firming. And the goal is really, it's just a numeric firming goal, something to kind of wrap your head around what kind of amounts we're talking about. And those amounts are limited to 20% of the entitlement. So we don't have, so it wasn't anticipated, I don't think, that we would reach the goal, most likely not in Tucson. I think they knew that back then based on the monies that are collected here in Pima County, that there was not enough money collected to meet the size of the entitlement down here. But we have made a lot of headway. The difference between M&I firming and Indian firming is that M&I firming, we do the best we can, get the credits, get the water stored. For the Indian settlements, we have an obligation to meet that firming requirement. So it could be more, it could be less, but we have a requirement to meet the firming amounts. So we do modeling from time to time, and we'll probably be showing some new modeling numbers in the near term here.
Thank you.
Other questions for Virginia? I don't see anything in the chat, so I'm going to assume that the audience doesn't have comments or questions. Is that correct? If so, thank you, Virginia, very much. It's always concise and clear, and we appreciate your work.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to present. And we'll be putting out our full draft plan and asking for additional comments at that point in time too. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. Item number 6, changes in gravity used to quantify groundwater storage change in the Tucson AMA. Libby Kaler of USGS. Libby, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Can we see your face?
I can try. It wasn't working earlier, but I'll try.
She's got her hair in curlers, I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm sorry. My camera is picking up anything. I'm going to try to share my screen. If that doesn't work, we do have a backup plan. So.
Okay.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Right. Okay, great. I'll just get going then. We call this project aquifer-storage change monitoring in the Tucson active management area. That box you see in the right is pretty much where we make all of our measurements for this project. So it's not across the entire AMA, but it does pick up storage changes in Avra Valley, the bulk of Tucson, and Marana as well. There might be some other people from our team joining. Jim Lienhoutz is the center director for the Arizona Water Science Center. Jay Cedarberg is a supervisory hydrologist, and he's actually been in charge of this project as well, and he's my supervisor. And Jeff Kennedy is a research hydrologist and our geophysics specialist, and he heads up our South Gravity program. We kind of inherited our gravity program from the University of Arizona. It started with John Sumner and a number of his students. They put out a number of master's theses and dissertations establishing how to use this method for hydrology. And we kind of picked it up from there. We even got some of their equipment, and then we've been developing our own program ever since. We call the method repeat microgravity. It's different from measuring changes in gravity in space, which is a typical geological application for gravity. We're measuring changes in time at the same location. And without getting too much into the weeds, that allows us to try a smaller signal with greater confidence. So that smaller signal, we refer to it as microgravity, because essentially what we're measuring is the acceleration due to gravity at the microgal resolution. So a microgal is the digit 8 places to the right of the decimal point in 9.79 ... meters per second squared. So it's a very small value, but we're able to have good confidence in that value because of this method. Those black triangles to the left are all of our projects. So we do have projects in California, Arizona, and New Mexico, and some completed projects in gray. So you can see we actually have 3 current projects in the Tucson area. And if I have time, I'll touch on these 2 as well, because they're also important to this larger regional project. Some of the things we've done to develop our own program, our own data review and archival. We are actually mandated to publish our data online, so it's publicly available, which is great for transparency. So we've been starting to do that as of 2016. You can actually access gravity data online, which is pretty cool. Some of the hydrologists who have worked on this over time have also created a techniques and method report, which really just talks about how to use this method for what we do and helps ensure that we can do it reproducibly across all of our projects and all of the science centers that are involved in this work. And then Jeff has actually written a number of software programs and a mobile app, which also has really helped to standardize everything and make sure all these projects are comparable. So, interesting. I just found out I'm showing the preview and not the slide.
I'm seeing the slide and the next slide. Libby.
Okay.
Libby, I think if you hit display settings,
duplicate slideshow?
Swap presenter view and slideshow.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Sure.
So usually when I start to talk to people about the method and what we do, they immediately think of GRACE. Oops, looks like I skipped a slide. That's NASA's Gravity Recovery and Climate Experience, and they are actually measuring changes in gravity from space. The resolution of the data that they get, because they are so far away from Earth, is relatively low. You can see these pixels in this middle panel down here, which is great for a model, you know, a groundwater model that maybe includes all of the United States. But for a local water manager, it doesn't really give them the information they might need. So we talk about what we do as though it's bringing GRACE down to Earth. So we are actually measuring gravity changes on the land surface. So you can see these instruments to the left. These are the ones we typically use for this particular project. The absolute gravity meter, that's the one that measures the absolute acceleration due to gravity. So that's that 9.79 ... meters per second squared. This relative gravity meter measures changes in gravity between 2 different stations. So you set up a datum station using the absolute gravity meter, and then you measure the change from that station to another, and back. And that enables you to basically get one set of gravity values at each of your stations. You do that again a year later, or whatever your time period is, and then you compare those, how they've changed, and that starts to give you the storage change. You might be wondering why we don't just make a bunch of measurements with our absolute gravity meter instead, but it does take about 40 minutes to complete a measurement with this instrument and about 10 with this one. So we get the same accuracy with this instrument, our repeatability, but it's much faster. You can also monitor gravity continuously, so much like you could go out and measure discrete water levels in a well, or you could throw a transducer down there and get continuous data. You can do the same thing. These meters over to the right then are continuous monitoring, and they do have to be housed. You're not moving those around in a van. They do stay there. But this sort of application is great for artificial recharge. These two were installed at Tucson Water's SAVSARP facility, monitoring gravity during recharge cycles there. So most of you are probably aware of the history of this project, but I do just want to really reinforce that it's been going on since the late 90s. We have funding cycles for this project that are typically 3 to 4 years. And many of our cooperators have been with us since the beginning, I think including ADWR. These green ones, there's been a number of products that have come out of this work over the years, and I really wanted to highlight those. I don't know that these links are going to show up in the video though, but these are the ID numbers you can use to search for them as well. And then the last funding cycle started in our 2018 water year and ended at the end of September. These last 3 items are all things that came out of the last funding cycle. So we had a report that went from 2003 to 2016. We had full surveys done in 2018 and 2019, and a data release that includes all of that data. Those are online. We also got a partial survey done in 2020, and we also have a story map that got published just this spring, and it has results from 2003 to 2019 there. Definitely encourage you to check that out on your own time if you'd like. I gave a lot of presentations to our cooperators after 2019, and one thing they seemed to want was something they could share with their shareholders to explain why they support this project. And then we did actually just start a new funding cycle for this project on October 1st of this year, and these are our cooperators for this next funding cycle. Pima County, Marana, and ADWR have been on board in the previous cycle as well, and then Tucson Water also came on board. It's important to mention that this is what we call a matching kind of project. So all of these cooperators contribute to the cost of the project, and because they contribute, we're allowed to contribute some funds, some matching funds towards the cost as well. So this isn't work we could do on our own. We need cooperators on it. So it's great to have everyone on board with that. So the purpose of doing this work is to monitor aquifer storage change, how much water is entering or leaving our system, and where is that happening. So as water is added or removed from an aquifer, that causes a change in mass, and that change in mass has a corresponding and measurable change in gravity. And that change is direct. If you model a change in storage as a change in the thickness of a slab of freestanding water, you can get that storage change directly from your change in gravity divided by a constant. The equation shown is for storage change in feet and change in gravity in microgal. So if you didn't have this way of calculating aquifer storage change from gravity, you might look at the volume of your aquifer drained. So you might change in water level. Change in water level in an unconfined system might tell you how your saturated thickness of your aquifer is changing. But in order to quantify the amount of water that water level change is corresponding to, you need to know the specific yield of the aquifer. And specific yield is hard to estimate, and it changes spatially. So what we do is we're coming at it from the other way and just directly estimating that aquifer storage change. And because we're able to directly estimate it, it starts to reduce uncertainty related to how you might estimate storage change otherwise, where estimating all of your inflows, all of your outflows, and taking the difference. When we think about our outflows, we do measure, obviously, groundwater pumping. We know artificial recharge. We get precipitation and estimate natural recharge from that, and then we estimate ET. So the residual term is your storage change, but it's actually storage change and kind of residual error from all those other estimates. This method is also not sensitive to aquifer properties, like I said. It doesn't matter what the specific yield is. If you put the same amount of water into two different systems, you'll get different water level changes, but you'll get the same storage change using this method. Continuous monitoring is also really great for artificial recharge. And I think one of the things that our cooperators kind of historically appreciate is that we can actually get maps of storage change. So coverage maps of storage change can really kind of highlight areas where storage is increasing or decreasing more. The reason we can do that is because when you're making an observation, your observation point is sensitive to mass changes extending out away from your meter as well. So it's not a point measurement. And if you have a density of observation locations close enough, you can interpolate between them and get a surface. It's also relatively non-invasive. We just added about 45 new stations to this network for the current funding cycle. And in many cases, we're just able to pull up to the curb and set up on a sidewalk. So it's pretty inexpensive as far as that goes. It is important. It's important to also recognize that this method is going to capture changes in the unsaturated zone as well as in the aquifer. So it's sensitive to mass changes happening below and to some distance away from your observation point. So if you set up a gravity meter next to an ephemeral channel while it's recharging, or there's some recharged water moving through the unsaturated zone, it's going to pick that up in the storage change that it gives you. When you couple these gravity changes with water level changes, when they are reflecting the same thing, so if you have a well in the regional aquifer and you're measuring gravity at that well and there's no ephemeral recharge or no sources of water that are moving through the unsaturated zone, you can actually estimate specific yield, which is difficult to get otherwise. So this is a good way to do it. Oops, backwards. So this is how you would get that specific yield. Divide your storage by your change in water level. These two different measurements have two different accuracies, so you really need multiple pairs. And most of the successful projects where we've gotten specific yield, we've also measured several times a year versus this project where we measure once a year or once every other year. But if you have several pairs, you can take the slope of the line of best fit, and that's your specific yield estimate. So to start to get into some of the results from this project, starting with 2003 to 2006, just kind of want to explain this figure a little. That colored portion of the map, that's the storage change map that I was talking about. You'll see the shape and the size of it change as we go through these results, and it is bounded by where we measured gravity. And specifically, where we measured gravity in 2003 that we can compare to where we measured gravity in 2006. So for this time interval, in this limited area, we actually had net zero storage change, but across the AMA as a whole, just looking at pumping versus recharge, there was pretty substantial negative storage change and below average precipitation as well, which the gravity method obviously is going to pick up on because it's going to pick up on water moving through the unsaturated zone. So 2006 to 2008, you'll also notice these time intervals are not perfectly even. We devised them to get the most information that we could. So sometimes that was a 2-year interval, sometimes it was a 3-year interval. But we did get measurements in Avra Valley, and you can see this kind of dispersed mound of positive storage change under Tucson Water's CAVSARP facility there. And also some positive storage change over in the foothills area, and 0 to 1 feet of storage change over much of the southern part of the Tucson Basin, and then lost to the northwest and the north as well. Too far. There was above average precipitation in this time interval too, and I think that's partially what we're seeing here. The 2006 measurement would have been made before the large storm events in 2006. It actually resulted in a debris flow in Sabino Canyon. So we're probably seeing the effect of some of that water that would have recharged then dispersing as well. Going to a 3-year period then, 2008, 2011, negative storage change in the southern part of the Tucson Basin, which is more typical for this project, and also across much of the Tucson area. There's also, if you look at the previous time interval, you have that positive storage change of 1 to 2 feet happening in the foothills, and then that switches to -2 to -1 feet here too. 2009 was a very low precipitation year, so we're possibly seeing less than normal recharge happening in that area, we're probably also picking up on the fact that the positive storage change happening in the previous time interval has dispersed. So it was there, we recorded it, we got that positive storage change, it dispersed, we came back, and it's storage loss because of that. Next time interval, also significant storage loss or negative storage change to the southern part of the Tucson AMA. We didn't get this part of Avra Valley in the last time period, but you do see SAVSARP is now online. This time period, if you look at just a water budget method, was, I think, slightly positive. And you can kind of tell that it would be because of all the recharge happening here. But we're just capturing the negative storage change happening over here. And again, below average precipitation for the last 2 years of this time interval as well. So this is where the report ended, and it kind of ends on this really happy note. This is actually positive storage change across the entire monitored area for the first time since the 2006 to 2008 period. So you obviously see recharge happening over here in Avra Valley. It's also worth pointing out too that this is very dispersed. So some of that just depends on the timing of our gravity surveys. Are we measuring gravity while they're actively recharging or have been, or have these basins been shut off for a while? Also above average precipitation in 2015. So the 2016 measurements would have been made in late winter following 2015. So probably picking up on some of that too. This is the next interval that wasn't in the report, and you see really strong negative storage changes to the southern part of the Tucson AMA. It's the first time we've seen -4 to -3 feet in that area. And in contrast to the last one, you also see this more defined mound happening under CAVSARP. So in the previous time interval, it looks, there's a lot of recovery pumping going on, and then there's less pumping going on here too. I also talked to Tucson Water about this, and they were apparently revamping their basins here. So removing some of the top layers of sediment to expose gravel and recharge even more into that facility. So that was kind of cool to see that show up. And we do see some more positive storage change sort of in that foothills area, which when I looked at when the surveys in that area were done in 2018, they did follow some precipitation events. So we are looking at some recharge happening from them too, probably, so in the unsaturated zone. And then this is just a 1-year time interval, so it's not really comparable to the others, but we did get full surveys in 2018 and in 2019, which were on the previous funding cycle. So I did just want to include those as well. But we are still seeing negative storage changes towards the southern part of the Tucson AMA, which is pretty typical for most time intervals. Oops. So the new funding cycle, this is the network we proposed, and it was accepted for moving forward for the next 4 years. I added about 45 relative stations and a number of absolute gravity stations too. Over the years, our equipment has gotten better, and we've better defined our methods. So we used to actually get the National Geodetic Survey to come out and make our absolute gravity measurements for us. And I think in 2005, 2007, we actually were able to purchase our own gravity meter. So the more datum stations that you have within reason, the better you're able to constrain your network. So I really wanted to move this project forward, get more data, get better resolution, but also make sure we're getting enough datum observations too. So we're starting to work on this. The next full survey is happening starting next week. Should have a data release by the end of the state fiscal year. And the significance of that is once that data is online and it's approved, then I can create the storage change map for 2018 to 2020, for example. Another thing to notice about this project, if you're aware of what this project has cost you as a cooperator in the past, I essentially added a lot of work. I increased the network size by about 50%. Funding cycle. And the reason why is because we are using newer equipment that is more efficient. It's more interchangeable. And so we're actually going to be able to complete this larger network in about the same amount of time, if not less time. So I would actually really like to add some stations up in Oro Valley at some point, and maybe even further south in Green Valley too. But for now, for this funding cycle, I really wanted to focus on just improving what we've got and making sure we have a handle on that. So I'm just to briefly summarize then, you know that, reduced groundwater draws and increased artificial recharge has made a better balance between those two. Where I think the gravity monitoring is really useful is to highlight the exact, well, not the exact, but to show the spatial change of storage change around the monitored area. And it seems to give us information about natural recharge happening and the variation that happens across the study area as well. And then we do have total storage change estimates for the monitored area. You can actually find those in the report. And there's a graphic of them in the story map as well. So it enables us to reduce the uncertainty in that term. However, if you look at water budget for the AMA, we're not monitoring the entire AMA, so you can't compare them together quite like that. But we do have storage change estimates for each time interval for the monitored area. The current agreement, we're going to be monitoring the full survey every other year, and then we'll be doing a partial survey in those off years just to make sure we're covering our cooperators' needs. Obviously, artificial recharge projects are going to want a couple data points there to the south of Tucson Basin, and then maybe some areas where we would get natural precip too. And then we have this really long record of data, and you should know that we have more data than I presented here. We were looking for time intervals that we could show the change, but we actually have data for the years in between as well. So we just have this really great record of data. And we're working on a project where we're using gravity observations as groundwater model calibration targets. It's been shown that the more kinds of observations you include in your model calibration, the better your resulting model. And of course, if you have a better model, you have a better forecast. So we have that data. And if we could add that to a model moving forward, that's just value added for what everyone's already paid for, which would be really great. I have a little bit of time, so I'm just going to say there are 2 projects additionally in this area that are with Tucson Water. This one is a really dense network around the Santa Cruz River Channel to monitor storage changes happening from their Heritage project, where they're putting reclaimed water into the channel. So this one just started. We're making a second full set of measurements this spring, and there will be a report out the following year. And then this is another facility to the east where they're recharging reclaimed water into basins. There's not water level information around here. These blue dots are actually gravity stations. We got a measurement before recharge started, so we're going to be able to get a really good, really capture the storage changes happening around this area. That is all I have, but this is my contact information. If you want more information or you want links to publications or anything, feel free to shoot me an email.
Libby, that's great. Questions for her? Anybody? I want to be sure I understand where we go if we wanted to see those other yearly intervals. I know that it was probably on that slide that you just took off the screen.
If you want to see the images I just presented?
No, you said that there was a data set that showed all those years, not just the 2 or 3 year compilation.
There's
right?
not an image of it.
Okay.
But we do have that data, and one of my goals that I haven't put into the project funding is to say, can we put all the data that we have on Sciencebase and have that entire record? And that would be a start towards using that data in a model, or just making sure we're getting the full use out of it.
Right. Okay.
But we don't have that yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions or comments to Libby? Hearing none. Thank you so much, Libby. This is very helpful, and I appreciate you sharing all this information with us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on. Is that me getting feedback? Moving on to agenda item number 7, Kyle. Let's talk about WMAP and 2021 withdrawal fee updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last GUAC meeting, ANOV asked for your recommendation for 2021 withdrawal fee amounts. And at that time, the council recommended increasing the withdrawal fees to a total of $3.75 an acre foot, which was 50 cents an acre foot higher than the level they are set for the 2020 calendar year. The Water Management Assistance Program fee was recommended to increase from 25 cents an acre foot to 75 cents an acre foot, with the admin and enforcement fee remaining at 50 cents an acre foot and the water bank fee remaining at $2.50 an acre foot as directed in statute. The director thanks you for your recommendations. He does take your input very seriously and values your insights. However, considering the current economic situation, the director has decided to keep the Tucson AMA withdrawal fees the same for the 2021 annual reporting year that they will be for the 2020 annual reporting year. That's shown on your screen here. Next, I'm going to provide a brief update on Tucson's WMAP fund. We have a current fund balance of $28,149, and we also have $22,050 of encumbered funds. That leaves you $6,099 in available funds. 2 projects are currently being funded through the WMAP funds, and an additional 3 are being funded with some additional grant funds, which I'll go into detail here in a second. As you're all aware, the legislature passed and the governor signed into law Senate Bill 1227 last year, and part of that legislation appropriated $2 million in funding for grants to support water conservation projects and was divided among the 5 AMAs on a per capita basis. The process to approve grants for those water conservation projects is similar to the process you currently utilize for monies associated with the WMAP. Project proposals were presented to the GUAC for consideration, and the GUAC provided their recommendations for project funding to the director, who ultimately made the final decision regarding the expenditure of funds. I just want to take a second to thank you for the time and energy you all put into those recommendations and acknowledge the critical role you played in moving that program forward. I know we all enjoyed working with you on that, so we really appreciate it. Those $2 million are tracked separately from the rest of the WMAP fund, and that's in order to allow the Governor's Water Augmentation, Innovation, and Conservation Council to report on the impacts and effectiveness of those selected projects as required by Executive Order 2019-02. The Tucson AMA, being the second most populated AMA, was allocated $305,000 of that $2 million. You all reviewed 10 applications, and the projects that have been selected to receive funding are shown on your screen here. The 3 selected projects were funded a total amount of $305,000, and each project was asked to provide estimates for the annual impact of their project. And when we look at those in sum, we'll conserve an estimated 4,883 acre feet per year in the Tucson AMA, in addition to educating an estimated 30 to 40 individuals through the Marana Water Citizens Water Academy. And we are currently in the process of writing each grant recipient's contract and look forward to sharing more news with you as these projects progress. Does the council have any questions?
Madam Chair, I have a comment.
Sure. Go ahead, Tim.
Disappointed in the director's decision to not accept the GUAC's unanimous recommendation on the fees. That makes 2 years in a row.
I'm glad that you made that comment. I was interested in the letter that we received. I think all the council members received a copy. I got the hard copy from Tom. And he simply said in the letter he's not in favor of increasing and without any reason. At least Kyle has said that it had to do with the economic downturn, which makes a better case for it than just simply say I decided not to. But I would really like to carry the message back through Kyle to Tom. We thought very carefully and discussed pretty much at length at our last meeting about the rationale for increasing this amount, and yeah, just disappointing. It's disappointing.
We no longer have the funding to continue these ongoing projects. We have $6,000 in the bank.
Right.
Not
even for a good party.
Nope. So ongoing long-term projects we have funded and benefited from for years will likely be no longer viable in 2021 because we don't have the funding.
Right. Other comments or questions?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say thank you for that comment. I'll definitely bring it back to the director and make note that it's been 2 years that he has not taken your recommendation. So I appreciate your comment, and we'll share that.
Any other comments on this item? Hearing none, let's move on to item number 8. Maggie will now provide us with management plan update. Maggie, you with us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair Little.
Huh?
There we are. My name is Maggie Martin. I'm a management plan specialist working at EDWR on the management plans team, and today I will be providing status updates on the 4th and 5th management plans, and I will start with the 4th management plan. Next slide. Thank you. We did set a goal to complete the remaining 4th management plans by the end of 2020, and we are on track to reach that goal. We are concurrently working on the development of the 5th management plans and are continuing to move forward with both of these timelines. Next slide. The general process for the development of the 4th management plans are on top of this slide here. The Tucson AMA, as you know, completed this process in 2016, and the Prescott AMA 4th management plan was adopted in 2014. The Phoenix AMA completed this process in the spring of this year. The Santa Cruz AMA completed this process in October, and we intend to adopt the Pinal AMA 4th management plan by the end of the year to remain on track for all the remaining conservation program requirements to go into effect on January 1st, 2023. Next slide, please. Thank you. I will now update you on the 5th management plans. Last year, we developed the management plans work groups, which is the public stakeholders process for the development of the 5th management plans. We are actively meeting with each of the sector subgroups to develop the concepts for the 5th management plans. Once this process is complete at the end of the year or early next year, we plan on spending most of 2021 actually drafting the plans and 2022 adopting the plans, with the goal for the plans to become effective in 2025. Next slide, please. The management plans work group, again, is our stakeholder process for the 5th management plans. We have been meeting regularly since the initial meeting in July of 2019. We started with assessing the existing conservation programs, and now updating the existing strategies and are developing new concepts. As a part of this developmental phase, we wanted to create one location for all of the information related to the strategies and concept proposals. So we created the 5th management plans concept webpage. Next slide, please. Thank you, Kennedy. This page was introduced to this group in the August meeting, but I'll briefly say that the concepts on this page are organized by subgroups. We've included interactive dashboards, illustrations, and graphics, and summaries of the corresponding work group meetings, as well as comments from the stakeholder community that we have received on the concepts and proposals. We encourage you to visit this page and check it out if you haven't done so yet. The link to this page is included here at the top of the slide. Next slide, please. I wanted to end with the management plans work group meetings that we have coming up. We have a full work group meeting scheduled for December the 9th, and then a couple other subgroup meetings throughout November and December. The dates are also available on that website included at the top of the slide here. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention. My contact information is available on the slide here, and I'm happy to take any questions from the council.
Thank you, Maggie. Anybody, comments or questions? Hearing none, we're going to move on. Thank you again, Maggie. We're going to move on to item number 9, call to the council.
Madam Chair, I was wondering, is there a place where we can go out and get these slides, or will they send them to us? Or for the presentations we've seen today.
Kyle?
The slides will all be posted on the website. We can also send them out to GUAC interested parties if you'd like.
If it's on the website, that's fine.
Great. We can send out a link to the website where they'll be.
That would make it easier. Thanks, Kyle.
Sure.
Is this where we talk about future agenda items? Anybody have things that we need to talk about next go around? Okay. Call to the public. I know you're out there. I do see a dot by the chat, so somebody has something.
Val, this is Wally.
Hey.
Just a quick update on the Northwest Recharge Recovery Delivery System project that the Northwest providers are constructing. We've almost completed the second phase, which is the construction of 3 production wells out in the immediate vicinity of the AVRP and the Lower Santa Cruz Replenishment Project. Each of these wells will be connected together into a transmission main in coming years. They all are highly productive wells, and they're kind of the first of their kind with using glass beads down here in Dean County.
Thank you, Wally. Thank you. Any comments or questions for Wally on this topic? Okay, I think we're about ready to wrap this up.
Oh,
Yes,
Madam
go ahead.
Chair.
Mm-hmm.
We do have one thing in the chat from Libby. She says, thanks again for the opportunity to talk about the gravity monitoring in the Tucson AMA. And she provided a link to the story map of this project since it didn't show up in her slides. So that link is available for everyone there.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Libby. Okay. I think I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It's now 3:42. And it was a good meeting. I look forward to the next meeting or maybe the meeting after that when we can all be together. I miss you guys. I mean, I'm doing okay with this Zoom business, but I need some human contact. Okay. Thanks everybody for your effort.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Meeting adjourned at 3:42.
Thanks, everyone. We look forward to the next meeting.